Things are settling down across the lower 48, but big changes are just around the corner. Record-breaking temperatures and perhaps a record-breaking storm are lurking just over the horizon. So sit back and get ready to get blitzed. You're in the zone, and a new episode of Cold Rain's Weather Blitz starts right now. What a wild March it has been so far, and there's no signs of letting up. We've got plenty of weather to talk about, and we're going to get into what is potentially going to be another significant weather maker toward the end of next week. In the meantime, we've got potential record-breaking temperatures, both high and low, and we'll get into that. Plus, we'll take a look at what's going on today and what the weekend looks like. So you are here for another episode of Cold Rain's Weather Blitz. My name is Jason Pritchard, and I'd like to welcome you into the channel. Thanks for being here. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, like the video, comment, leave a prayer request in the comment section, leave a comment about the show. Happy to have you here. But the Weather Blitz is fast paced. We're going to get right into the weather today. We're going to take a look at the weather over the weekend and then take a look at what's coming around the corner for next week. So stay tuned, subscribe to the channel, make sure you're subscribed, and we'll keep you up to date on what's going on. And as usual, we're going to start with our satellite image. And I wanted to show the big storm system that has just moved off into the Atlantic. Well, it's moving into the Atlantic from Canada. Look at this big cloud shield all the way up here near Greenland, extending all the way back down into the Bahamas. It sort of looks like a jellyfish with its tentacles coming out here. So pretty neat representation there. We've got some clouds moving across the states. I'll zoom in here. We'll take a little bit of a closer look at what's going on here. But you can see the boundary from night to day. That's pretty neat there. But clouds associated with a system that's weakening, moving through the Midwest. It brought several inches of snow, 6 to 10 inches of snow in parts of Wyoming, as many as 6 and 8 inches of snow up in South Dakota and portions of Nebraska. A couple more inches of snow could fall, but the temperatures are warming up. So some slick spots out there, but nothing too big to write home about as you get into Illinois and Indiana. Up in the Northeast, that system is pulling away. Little spokes of energy are moving around it, bringing some snow to Maine, but that's moving out. Some lake effect snow moving through the Great Lakes, and then some high clouds streaming in from the subtropical branch of the jet stream. Nothing really falling under these clouds, but it makes for a cloudy afternoon in spots. Our next big weather maker across the south is this spin that you see out here in the southwest corner of the country. This is an upper level system that's going to strengthen as it moves off to the east and bring rain and potentially some thunderstorms across the deep south. We're not looking at a severe weather outbreak, but we certainly could see some activity form across portions of Texas, Louisiana, into the southern portions of Mississippi, into the lower Mississippi Valley there, Alabama, Georgia, Florida. So we'll see, but nothing big going on down there other than some rain over the weekend. Now, looking at our radar imagery, we see that system that's kind of winding down as it approaches Chicago into the Great Lakes. That'll continue to transition off and weaken some little system, bringing some light snow showers up into New York. That system moving away out in the North Atlantic that we looked at before, wrap around snow showers into the Northeast. So up here around Bangor and then up into Caribou, you're looking at, anywhere from 4 inches of snow, maybe 5, 6 in spots. There's kind of a heavier snow band that's set up. And then out in the desert Southwest, again, this is where you're seeing your next weather maker for the South that's getting its act together, and it's going to move across the country through the course of the weekend into Monday and bring some rain and wet weather down toward the south. Now, we're going to look at our high temperatures for this afternoon, and taking a look here, you see really chilly across in Canada, the northern Great Lakes, into the Northeast. Temperatures in the teens and 20s this afternoon with snow. Much of the rest of the country, though, is mild, 30s and 40s across the north, with a little chillier out here in the Rocky Mountains. But then into Texas, we're looking at 70s, 80s, even some 90s down here towards South Texas. And so really warm across the south. That's going to continue to build over the course of the next few days. We'll get a little bit of a reprieve into the weekend, but really on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to see all of this warmth surge and dominate the country. Now, on Cold Rain's Weather World, we're going to show you a couple of things that you don't normally see on other channels. One of those is our Atari map from the WPC. So the Weather Prediction Center puts out this surface map. It's kind of old school. I like it. And so you can see that little low pressure system that's weakening as it moves east, bringing some snow to the Midwest and the Great Lakes. Little light snow left over in the Northeast this afternoon. A couple of showers would be out of the question, but really not much falling from those clouds that I showed you earlier. And then out here in the desert Southwest, some mixed precipitation. This will actually set the stage for some snow in portions of New Mexico, the panhandle of Texas and Oklahoma, and then move on into Texas as the temperatures are warmer. It's going to be rain across the south. And you can see that in tomorrow's forecast that starts to get its act together and swing over toward the east, and you see this little hatched area here or dotted area for thunderstorms. Again, there's a marginal risk down here in Texas, Louisiana, the southern portions of Alabama and Mississippi. You're seeing potential for a severe storm or two, not a lot of wind shear and cape overlapping with the storm, so I wouldn't expect a lot in the way of severe weather, but it wouldn't surprise me to see a report or two. And that shifts over to the east as we get into Monday. So that's going to shift over here into the southern portions of, well, really all of Florida, most of Georgia into South Carolina, even portions of North Carolina and Tennessee could see some rain. This looked like it was going to stay a little farther south yesterday, but today it's crept a little bit more northward, and the low pressure is really just going to generally track along the stationary front. And again, a few thunderstorms not out of the question, a couple of severe spots, but no widespread severe weather expected from this system at all. Another clipper swings through the northeast, bringing you all a little shot of cold air, some light snow, and then another system has moved into Canada, bringing a cold front into the Pacific Northwest. So snow up in the higher elevations and rain in the valleys. And that's what we're looking like from a surface map standpoint. Temperature-wise, over the next couple of days. So Saturday afternoon, again, a little bit warmer today than it will be on Saturday as that front kind of comes through and chills us off a little bit. A cold shot into the northeast. Sunday afternoon looking a lot better. A return flow sets up and you see 60s all the way up to the Canadian border, 20s, some 30s up in the higher peaks, but generally warming up as we get on into the weekend. And that system moves across the south. The cold shot moves out of the northeast. And so we start to warm up a little bit as we get into the week. It's really going to pick up in earnest as we get into Tuesday and Wednesday and the days following. And we'll take a look at that in just a minute. So as I said, we've got some big changes on the way as we get into next week. Strong southwesterly flow is going to usher in a large area of above normal temperature anomalies as we work through the week. And then we'll start to see a system move into the west coast later in the week. And we can see this on the jet stream. If we put the jet stream into motion, this is valid for this afternoon. And we're going to look through, this is the European model from last night. And we're looking at this out into motion Monday, Tuesday. You start to see a buckle out here. This is a system that's going to move into the Southern California area, bringing some rain out there. And then if we move it on into Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, you can see that fast flow. We've got a northern branch and a southern branch, and they kind of get together a little bit, but look at this big U shape moving into the west coast. That's indicative of a storm system in the upper levels that is going to be developing. And so watch what happens as we get on into next Friday afternoon. So warm weather through the week and kind of quiet. And then as we get into Friday, look, you've got this big trough, an extension of this jet streak up here in Canada, but a big jet dipping down in here to the southwestern portion of the country. And what's going to happen is this is going to spin up a low pressure over generally somewhere over the Four Corners region, all the way up here into Nebraska, Wyoming, Colorado. In this area, you're going to see a low pressure develop. And if we take a look at our surface map for that same time period, that's exactly what we see. Look at this. 977 millibar low sitting right over the panhandle of Nebraska, right in here in Colorado, where Nebraska and Colorado meet. The last storm system set pressure records for March. This storm system looks like it might be even stronger than that. 977 millibars. The GFS actually has it down to 971 millibars. That's crazy strong. Lots of wind energy with a system like that, even with 977. I mean, you're going to see some gusty winds. And we'll take a look at the wind map too, but we need to understand the severe threat and the heavy snow threat, but blizzard-like conditions, not out of the question, probably likely if this storm comes to fruition. Strong winds across much of the country again. The severe threat, there's some question marks about that, and I'll show you why that is here in a second. But looking at the European ensemble made up of all 51 members, the mean probability of a low pressure system in this area here in Nebraska, Kansas, South Dakota, having a pressure from 980 to 990 millibars, the probability of that, according to the European Ensemble for next Friday, is 70 to 80 to 80 to 90%, where you see these darker oranges here. So that's a pretty high probability of that kind of a system really being strong. We looked at this yesterday, and we looked at the probabilities for less than 1,000 millibars, and that's what we saw here. We saw high probabilities of that. Today we're looking at even assessing the probability of an even stronger system. And so we've got high probabilities of that. GFS and GFS ensembles agree to, although the location's slightly different. What about how do the individual ensemble members see the strength? Well, you've got some in the gray that show a fairly weak system, some in the green that show a stronger system. But look at these blue. Quite a few blue members show pressures under 980 millibars. That is super duper strong for this latitude in March. And so we're going to watch this closely, but the signals are pointing to another major storm system that is going to impact a large portion of the country. I wouldn't be so enthusiastic about predicting it, except there's a lot of agreement and the pattern supports it. And so we're going to see how this all comes together. Now look at this. The severe threat, or the cold side of the storm, there's a good chance that we're going to see quite a bit of snow and a lot of wind. The question mark is really going to be about the severe threat. So we need high dew points. We need instability. To get instability, you need warm air. That's going to be in place, but we don't know how much moisture is going to get pulled in from the Gulf of Cold Rain all the way up into the system. And we need that if we want to have a severe weather outbreak. We need dew points in the 60s and 70s to be ideal for that. And so we're not sure about that. Now, I'm not rooting for this, but just showing you that if you forecasting severe, you need dew points. And so next Friday afternoon, as the storm's kind of cranking up here, let's see what happens as we move this on into Saturday and to Sunday. Look at that. Dew points, we'll roll it back slowly, but you can see these dew points kind of come in a little bit over the south, but this is not very respectable. You don't get into the 60s and 70s, so you get to these darker greens. This 40s and 50s up here, not going to get the job done for a widespread severe weather outbreak. But this is not set in stone either. It's a little better return up here along the eastern seaboard, but again, we're looking at 50s, close to 60. So you would want to see higher dew points surge in, and we may not have the mechanisms in place to drive this all the way up along that front. So we'll have to see how that shakes out. Nothing, there's no way to know yet, but we'll pay attention. Subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're subscribed. I'll be tweeting on Twitter, and I'll be making videos here to kind of outline the threat as it evolves and we know a little bit more. One thing is a little bit more certain. If we get a storm system that strong, we're going to see a lot of wind like we saw with this last one. So big areas of 50 to 60 mile an hour gusts, again, a large area of gusts into the 30s and 40s. Again, this is just a model prediction, so I think the main takeaway here is that as we see the storm system unfold next week, the potential is there for wind across a large portion of the United States. Probably your greatest threat is back here in the central plains down to the south central portion of the country up into the Great Lakes. Again, heavy wind-driven snow on the cold side, potentially heavy rain along that front. And this is one of those situations too where if we look back here at the European again, and we take a look at the surface map and we just roll it forward a little bit, it strengthens, it goes up into the Midwest, upper plains, and that cold front, builds along the south. You see the representation of some stronger storms here, so it's not out of the question. We could get a severe weather outbreak. We just have to watch and see how much moisture we've got to work with. Wind energy is going to be no problem. And so we'll go back here again and kind of look at this front, and it doesn't blast through like the last one did. The storm system's kind of lollygagging up here a little bit, but what's going to happen is, as it moves up to the north, a wave of low pressure looks like it might develop along this front. The GFS even shows this a little bit more robust reflection of that. So you get this front that kind of moves through slowly and sags in and then kind of goes off the coast. So you could see some heavier rain amounts up and down the eastern seaboard. Again, we'll assess the severe threat as we go out in time. And look what the European does as you get on out into the latter part of week 2. You're looking at looking at Wednesday, March the 19th, into Thursday, Friday again. Look at this, another big storm system. So we're in a pattern that's very active, one after the other. I mean, they're several days apart, but still moving up from the Four Corners region around Colorado. We call these Colorado lows, just blasting up into the Great Lakes, strengthening, big wind fields around these things. So we're going to have to watch the weather very closely over the next couple of weeks. Stay subscribed to the channel. I'll get you get you up to speed as we go on through here. Another line of storms coming through. The GFS is a little less enthusiastic about this one, but the pattern, if we don't see a big pattern overhaul, then we can see these storm systems develop. A lot of energy in the pattern. It's a fast flow, and so we'll have to watch it and see. But taking a look at the temperatures, there's going to be a wild swing in the temperature. So we're kind of chilly through the weekend, more or less. The United States is kind of on the mild side, but it's chilly compared to what's coming, is what I mean to say. So we see big anomalies up here as we get into Monday morning, Monday afternoon, and then cooler anomalies across the south where that area of precipitation is. And then watch this, as we get into Tuesday, those warm anomalies just spread east and really start to bake the center and eastern portion of the country. So we're going to be 10 to 15, in some spots 20 degrees above normal. We could see highs in the 80s in areas along the southeast and portions of the lower mid-Atlantic, at least into the mid-70s. And then that persists for Friday, Saturday. Out ahead of that storm, you get the big warm surge from the south. And then behind it, cold air feeds in. You got a trough in the west. You could have some record-breaking low temperatures out west. So really active pattern, roller coaster temp-wise. It sort of moderates a little bit. That system pulls on through. You get a little bit of a chillier shot behind it. Warm air comes back in, chillier air comes back to the west, and then that moves on through as well. This is the European ensemble from last night. So kind of up and down. We'll get a nice period next week of warmer temperatures. So if you've got any indoor plans, you might want to move those outside if it's nice weather before that storm system rolls in. So it's going to feel good. We're going to have spring fever. So get ready, folks. It's wild. It's nice out there today, and you've got a kind of a tranquil weekend and early next week. But a wild ride. March is right around the corner to strike again, and strike it will. So looking at our hazards map, we can see the CPC is already seeing that storm system. This is the 8 to 14 day hazardous weather outlook. And so heavy snow in the cold sector of that storm as it moves through, high winds over much of the country again. You just can't get a break from these high winds. Drought conditions down in Texas, heavier rain along the Tennessee Valley up into the mid-Atlantic, and much of the eastern seaboard will see this shift east, I'm sure, over time. Heavy precipitation in the west, on the west coast. As storm systems move in here, you'll see rain in California, snow up in the higher elevations, and again, high winds here too. So the wild ride continues. Looking at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlooks, very warm in the east, very cold in the west. As I said, record-breaking temperatures both on the warm side and the cold side could occur. Storm systems moving into Southern California keep the temperatures down there, and again, 70s, potentially 80s in some portions of the southeast and lower mid-Atlantic. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, kind of the same format, really above normal out here in the west, with a above normal footprint probability across the northern tier and a little bit of a higher probability in the Tennessee Valley. And I'm sure this will continue to increase. Unfortunately, Texas and Oklahoma, you all are dry, so be very careful out there with burning outside. Wildfires could start and spread rapidly. There's going to be a lot of dust being blown around as the storm system moves in. You get high winds starting next week, so watch out for that. 8 to 14 days, so looking out toward the 2-week period, we're looking at below normal out west. Again, probabilities for above normal back east. This is a good map. I think this will end up verifying quite nicely. And the same with precipitation. So we've got our precipitation above normal on the east and west coast across the northern tier. Texas high and dry, and Oklahoma as well. So hopefully we can get a pattern change as we get on into later portions of the period. We're not going to look at that today, but there are some signs that there are some stratospheric changes that could take place that could drive the colder air back into the United States as we get on into March, into April, and maybe drive the storm track through the south and maybe get you guys some rain down here in Texas. So sorry about that. But anyway, that's the Blitz. That's where we are. Looks like the wild ride is going to continue for a couple of more weeks, and we will have all the details here. Make sure you stay subscribed to the channel, and I'll keep you up to date on the details. Won't have a video tomorrow, but we'll have one on Sunday, and maybe do a cold rains weather world when I have more time next week, and we'll get into a little bit of a longer look at some mechanics that sort of drive the weather. And by that time, we'll have a good idea of what our severe threat looks like, how that's evolving. So we'll continue to watch that. But have a great weekend, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.